College is a wild ride for young adults, and their mental health often suffers. This podcast addresses the inner battles many college students struggle with. You're listening to Normalize It Forward, where we have raw, unfiltered conversations about young people's biggest mental health problems, how to handle them, and how to achieve a more resilient mind. Time to get rid of those heavy burdens and focus more on self-love and care. Here is your host, Mark Lehman.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Mark Lehman, and this is Normalize It Forward. Today, we are welcoming in Jim Kuczo, the president and co-founder of Kevin's Afterglow. Jim and his wife, Kristen, founded Kevin's Afterglow after their son, Kevin, took his life February 4th, 2021. The mission of Kevin's Afterglow is to teach kids kindness, empathy, and ability to listen to each other and to give to others. Educate parents and children on mental health, help address the pediatric mental health crisis, and just plain get people talking. Thank you so much. And Jim, welcome. How are you this evening?
Good to see you again. I'm doing well.
Good to see you as well. Thank you for being here. I so appreciate you making the time. And, maybe one way to kind of kick things off would be for you to kind of tell us the story behind Kevin's Afterglow.
Sure. My wife and I founded Kevin's Afterglow about a year after our son Kevin took his life. We live in Fairfield. He went to Fairfield Ward High School. I think he died on February 4th, 2021, as you said, and really founded it in my son. He went away on this trip. It was called the Appalachian Service Project. He did that when he was a junior, and they go down to Appalachia, West Virginia, some of the, I'd say, poorest places in America, right? And they go down to make houses warmer, safer, drier. And he came back on that trip. He felt he did really good, and he met a lot of people. And he said, "Dad, I don't know what I want to do with my life." And it was a freshman, sophomore. But he said, "I know." He said, "No, I want to help people," and we're trying to honor that desire to help people. We want to help people understand mental health. I didn't understand mental health even when we knew Kevin had depression. I think for people of my generation and my parents' generation, it was something you didn't talk about. You kept hush hush. And Kevin's Afterglow is here to try and teach kids at a very young level to, empathy, to look out for each other. We want to help people. We want to educate parents and children on it. And the stuff that I didn't know, I'm like a quasi-expert on this now. And I wish I had known. And I know it's not the subject that everyone wants to talk about, but it's here and it's real. It's treatable. It's beatable. Just like if you have there's doctors for this. If you have a problem with your heart, you go see a cardiologist. You have a problem with your eyes, go see an optometrist. There's psychiatrists and psychologists, people that are trained to help you with this. Okay, it's a brain problem. It's not a you problem. Okay, it's an imbalance, and it can be treated, and it's beatable. And it's just like any other disease. So that's the message that we're trying to get out here, and we're trying to get out that there are many resources out there on the internet and so forth, whether it be the North American Mental Alliance, NAMI. There are all sorts of, even our own government, the CDC and NIH, they have great websites out there. And those are all for you to see on kevinsafterglow.org.
Mm-hmm. It's a great website. I've been on it several times. And Jim, I so appreciate and admire what you do. I mean, I've had the opportunity to present with you and talk with you in the past, and you are an incredible individual. You're warm, you're caring, you're considerate. Most importantly, though, you're a human being, and you realize, like we're all built the same. We're all susceptible. And just when a parent thinks their kid isn't, guess what? They are.
I mean, I could tell you that I'm not a perfect person. I'm not. I'm not a perfect. I'm not a perfect father. I'm not a perfect husband, son, whatever, brother. But I thought I was doing things right. I checking the boxes. I got a house, a mortgage, and working and stable and everything. And I never thought it was going to happen to my family. And again, not perfect, but if it can happen to my family, it can happen to your family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And you said something earlier that I want to just go back to for a minute. Suicide is not a word people like to use. It's not a topic that people like to talk about. Neither is depression.
yeah,
And I find that, I mean, there's presentations I do where I literally avoid using the word because it's such a turnoff, right?
yeah, yeah,
To people. But yet it's one of those things that the suicide rate is highest as it's ever been, in young adults. The depressive rates and the anxiety rates for high school and college age kids are higher than they've been in years.
yeah,
And so, again, you and I talked about this a bit, but the thrust behind Normalize It Forward, the thrust behind what we're doing is let's talk about this. Let's talk about
yeah,
it. Because if we can offer tips, if we can offer suggestions, if we've made mistakes and other people can learn from them, fantastic. Like that's
yeah.
just what life is
hmm
about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, the kids are everybody. I'm holding up my phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I heard a psychiatrist on the news call it a modern day weapon of mass destruction. And this social media on how it could be cruel. And even if people aren't trying to be cruel, people can perceive it as, well, why is Mark always going? Mark's in, Turks and Caicos now. They were just in Florida 2 months ago. How come they get to go on all these vacations? Look how big their house is. Look at that car. And
Mm-hmm.
how come they're at that party and I wasn't invited?
Right.
Things like that. And it just simple things where you get left off a text string and you're gone for a while. And there's a lot of things, you take to, you add that the normal things of trying to get pressures of getting into college, if that's what you want to do, sports specialization, other things. And it's very tough for these kids, and everything's magnified
Yeah.
because of social media.
Yeah. And the sad part is, and you and I both know this as adults, is that social media is one dimensional. It doesn't tell a story at all. I've had people in my office crying in the afternoon and posting in the evening. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't
It's
tell
a
the whole
rush,
story.
and I also want to, I know it's past, but I always say that my son died of COVID. He didn't die of COVID, but he died of COVID. And we're talking about connecting and with people. We took away all the connection, and almost every student went through that, right, at some form or another.
Yeah.
And I know it's gone, but I think it had an effect on kids, and it's got a lasting effect.
Totally did. I mean, you look at even last year, for example, there was a variety of students that missed graduation because of the encampments on campus. And then it occurred to me that's the same class that missed, graduation because of COVID 4 years previous in high school.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
that's got to affect kids. You know what I mean? There's no way
yeah.
it
I mean,
doesn't.
it's like how do you? Well, so I definitely think Kevin had depression. Oh, I know he had depression before COVID,
Mhm.
but it just bumped it up and another level. And I think I read, during right after Kevin died, I read, it's from the Pediatric Mental Health Alliance. It's something, very official. And self-harm in the Northeast during like a period of 220 around 2020 to 2021 rose 333%.
Wow.
Self-harm in the
Wow.
Northeast, And
Wow.
I say to kids, where are you? We're in the Northeast, so it's like, it's just crazy. But so, this is my son's 2020 school goes remote. So he gets, so that's at first, kids are like, yeah, no school, but now you have to sit in your bedroom and look at a screen all day and try to
Right.
pay attention. I mean, most kids. I still have an undiagnosed, ADD problem where I can't. If I'm looking, I have three screens right now, and I don't know what to do with them. And so it's like then like lacrosse gets canceled. Any type of dances or proms, and that trip I talked about, the service project to Appalachia, that got canceled. This beautiful sunset where some in eastern Maine, Canadian border, where my family goes, we couldn't go because it is in Canada, and they weren't letting people in, and that's where some of Kevin's ashes are spread up there, and that's why I have it. But things like that. So cancel, 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 cancel. Everyone's gonna die. What do you have to look forward to? Yeah, I mean, and so I get it. I get it. Some and it's just they're words that people hear. Like I recently, I try to not be on Facebook so much, but something came up on my feed, and she was called the Good News Girl, and it was just positive. It's just positive stories, and I subscribe to it because there's too much negative stuff out there. And,
yes. It's good to hear that stuff. It's good to hear that stuff. You tap into a really important word, and I want to ask you about this: hope. Right. So COVID took away hope. It took away hope for a lot of people. And one thing that I find now is that, kids that are applying for college, you mentioned it earlier, get turned down for the prom, don't get into a particular job that they want to get into. They feel like they have no hope. And you and I both know as grown adults that this too shall pass. But for a lot of those kids, they can't see over the horizon. So I guess I'm wondering,
their brains aren't fully developed yet, and I was laid off in May, so I'm still looking for a job, and it is tough. Let me tell you, being in mid-50s looking for a job, but I know it's gonna come. It's gonna come. It's gonna come, and but kids, they don't see that. I mean. With the power of social media, I think when I was in sixth grade or seventh grade, I got my first girlfriend, and I'm not going to say her name, but we held hands down the hall during third period, and then I think fifth period, I got a note from her friend saying that we were broken up, and okay, but. She could have broken up with me if that were today. She could have broken up with me on Snapchat, Facebook, and in front of the whole world. Yeah. And I would feel like the biggest moron ever. And, how do you recover from something like that? And it's just a whole new world for these kids. Yeah. But hope is what the feedback I have been given when I've given my presentation, and I talk about all these things. But I've heard, oh my God, that is the way I feel. And, coming from kids crying, shaking in my hand and my arms, and they're like, I can't believe someone else feels like the way I do. So it is, that type, and we tell kids that, there is hope of seeing a doctor, medicine. There are many things that can help you out there.
Lots of things. And, you hit on something really important, Jim, I want to emphasize, and that is part of the way we need to learn how to parent is we have to listen more. We're not going to, as a parent, jump in and fix these things. It's not a project to fix. It's our job to listen. It's our job to find supports, like you said, out in the community, whether it be an ally in school or whether it be a therapist or pediatrician or psychiatrist or whomever, even a group, for kids to begin to feel good about themselves, begin to look at sort of the opposite of depression and anxiety. A world of peace, a world of calm, I mean, I've had kids join gym groups. I've had kids join meditation groups, baseball groups, you name it, where it just gives them that sense of like, I'm good at something,
or belonging to something. I mean, Kevin was on the ward football and the lacrosse teams, and he wasn't the star. He was pretty good, But he was a great teammate. There is no one he'd rather not go in and see someone else do better and cheer them on, and or see someone who hasn't done well do well. And that's the kind of kid he was.
Yeah.
But he loved that he loved the team, and that kind of got. I have examples of headlines from a young boy in Maine, another boy in Chicago. I mean, it's unbelievable. Both football players, they could have taken their names out and put in Kevin's. Once football got canceled, he felt removed from his friends, disconnected, this, that, and the other thing. And they took their lives as well.
Yeah. Jim, forgive me, I can't remember the exact language, but I know there was a period of time where you guys were promoting and actually establishing benches outside of school.
Yeah.
Tell me more about. Tell my listeners about that.
There are two things. So Kevin's Afterglow is a 501c nonprofit charity approved by the government and everything. And we do two things with the money that we fundraise and donations. It goes to our Buddy Bench program, and it also goes to our pediatric mental health scholarship program. The Buddy Benches, my wife is a teacher, and she's a second grade teacher in Darien. And her teaching colleagues donated a buddy bench to Jennings Elementary, where my two boys went. And I had never heard of it. We went to a dedication, and I was like, wow, this is really neat. There's basically there's high level, there's rules around the bench. If you're feeling sad or lonely or not included on the playground, you can go sit on the bench. Okay. And kids are taught if someone's on the bench, to go over and help them. Hey, do you want to come play with me? And you have to go. If you're sitting on the bench, you have to go play with that person if someone asks you to. Okay. So, but I thought this was really neat because I was trying to figure out some way that we could, because I know kids were affected by the COVID thing, and I'll go more into that, but at a very high level, okay, because I know I really didn't ask for help from anyone until Kevin died. I needed help then. It's a hard thing for an adult to ask for help, let alone a kid, right? So if we can teach a kid at a very high level to ask for help and then receive help, that's pretty cool. Because, okay, what if I do reach out to a doctor and somebody can help me, or a counselor or someone? But just teaching them at that young age, and because if we can get a hold of this, the depression, the anxiety, the feelings, and if they are overcoming you and you're feeling sad, that you can go talk to somebody if there is hope. And, so we've been placing Kevin's Afterglow Buddy Benches. We have them. There's 19 public schools in Fairfield. And by the end of this, I'd say November, we're going to have them in all of them. We have two more elementary schools. So we have them in the middle schools, the high schools too. And because at first I was just going to do the elementary schools, because it's we when we go in, we give them instructions, curriculum, and books. So there's that. We don't just plop down a bench and say, here, figure it out. So these kids are being taught. And
fantastic.
What a nice way, a reminder when they go to the middle school and they go to the high school. Hey, you don't have to not necessarily sit on it like you would in elementary school. But hey, it's a reminder just to check in on people, to look out for others.
No doubt.
So,
I love it. I love it.
But what's really cool is we also have local businesses that have the bet. We do fundraising events with them, and so it's kind of like a connection through town, if you will. They see the kids, see them here, there, at school, there, and we did a. It was 2 Mays ago. We at Osborne Hill Elementary School, my wife and I, we usually do a dedication. We talk about what the bench is for. And then we kind of tell a story about Kevin. We tell him that he passed away, but he was a kid who looked out for his friends, and, let's do that. But this sums it up perfectly. A mother wrote on Facebook, "I'm not a big post person, but sharing as I want to know this if I knew and loved Kevin. My daughter, who was a first grader at Osborne Hill, came home today talking excitedly about the Kevin's Afterglow buddy benches around town. She said, now no one will ever be without a friend. I asked her if she knew what they were named after, and she said Kevin was a boy who was kind and friendly to all, always. She said whenever anyone was upset or alone, he would invite them to play and cheer them up. She knows he died and that he left behind friends and family that shared wonderful things about him and loved him very much. That is his afterglow. She knows the benches are a way of spreading that love and afterglow. If I were Kevin's mom, I'd want to know that some little girl somewhere, inspired by this, was talking about his wonderful life, to her own mom in their kitchen over dinner. And
How cool.
That's exactly what I want to do. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it makes me cry every time I read it. But
thank you for sharing that.
It's
was
amazing.
Awesome.
And the other thing that we're doing, and what I want to impress upon people is that we found this, is that we have a pediatric mental health care provider scholarship. When we were going through trying to find a counselor, I got a counselor to talk to Kevin, and trying to get a psychiatrist to dispense medicine. They're very, as we said, the rates are skyrocketing. So there's a lot of people looking for these doctors, and there's not enough out there. Okay. And it's very hard to. So I would encourage any parent who's going through this, go on the sites like Miami AFSP. You'll see the 10 different types of mental health conditions that your child might be exhibiting. But again, there's not enough doctors out there. And so what we want to do, those people who are studying to be a licensed social worker, counselor, psychiatrist, we want to give them money and help them. And we've given out about $20,000 worth of scholarships over the past 2 years.
Wow.
Yep.
Congratulations.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have to say, congratulations on the benches too. I think it's what an amazing project, and thank you for reading that email. That is that's what brings it home. It's like when a person says that. I mean, that's truly amazing. I think you guys work so hard to promote wellness, to promote kindness, and you may not always hear those emails, right? I mean, there's things going on. And
I take it like when I used to have this camera. Right now, everyone has the phones, but I had this camera. I would take sports pictures of my kids, like just press the button, like and we would take about 100 pictures, and I know 1 or 2 of them will come out really good, and that's what I get when I'm talking to an audience. I know I'm going to get through the 1 or 2 kids, and the stuff that we've done, I know for a fact that we've helped save 2 lives in Fairfield through our talking about, hey, if we teach people to act, to acknowledge, care, and then tell a trusted individual.
Mm-hmm.
There was one girl, she'd taken some pills and some vodka and told her friends, and they knew just what to do. And they saved that girl's life. And there's another boy who was acting strange, and he was just complaining about things, and they were trying to text him, and he wouldn't text, and they told his brother to go in his room, and his brother literally saved his life because he was in the process of hanging himself. So it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
Wow. Look, thank you so much for sharing those stories. I mean, obviously, these are hard stories to share. And I think that, if I could just ask my listeners to go to kevinsafterglow.org. Is it
kevinsafterglow.org? Yep.
.org. Please go over to that website. I know it's chock full of good information. And I think really most importantly, what I want my listeners to take away from our conversation today, both parents and kids, is don't ignore the signs. If there are things going on, if there is a general sadness with a young person, whether you're their friend or you're their parent, or you just simply know the kid, do not ignore that, because that could very well be the sign and symptom of that person getting ready to do something tragic. And a lot of times, as these signs and symptoms can be really subtle. Sometimes they're really overt, but regardless of how they present, we know that these are issues with young people, and these are issues that in many ways they rely on adults to respond
Yeah.
and to assist. So I think, I
Well,
applaud.
I think, people from our generation think that it's the kid out in the corner, maybe dressed weird or something like that by himself. It's not there. My kid has something we call high functioning or smiling depression, where we were concerned. We saw stuff at home, but he did not act that way at school. And we asked the guidance counselors, teachers. They're like, "Oh no, he's smiling. He's high fiving people. He's part of the mix, if not stirring the mix." And there was something about him that he felt he didn't fit in. And it's just the brain is powerful, very powerful, to make what's real seem different.
Yeah. And it's after effects are immense for obviously everybody that knows people like Kevin. I will say this. I think that one thing I've recognized and I feel like is starting to change in the last couple of years is people are asking more questions. People see someone sad. They're less unwilling to just keep walking. They ask the question. And I think to me, that gives me hope. It gives me hope that, those individuals aren't necessarily being ignored and overlooked, and I think that comes from these kinds of discussions, Jim. So it's, I applaud you for your efforts. I think that, it's immense. And I think there are many, many, many people that you are helping that you don't even realize you're helping. So thank you for all of your efforts and all of what you do. Can I put you on the spot?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Can I put you on the spot for a sec? So Normalize It Forward is the concept behind it is I want not only for us to have open conversation, but I want it to keep going. And so what I normally ask is when I interview someone, if maybe you have someone in your world, a friend, a coworker, a relative, someone who you think would be good for me to interview next to keep the conversation going. Any thoughts? Anyone you have in mind?
I mean, unfortunately, I know other people that parents of their sons took their lives, and I could certainly. There's a gentleman. He has a foundation called Believe in Your Greatness. Mm-hmm. It has to do. His son died. But was very much into music. So they have like a music type scholarship and music therapy. There's the HT40 Foundation. Hayden Thorson was a young man in Darien, Connecticut, a hockey goalie, took his life about a year after Kevin did. They have something pretty cool. It's called the Shoulder Check Initiative. Where you normally shoulder check someone in hockey, but this is more like, hey, I'm here for you, that type of thing. So I can certainly give you some names to that. And I know a bunch of wonderful people and have some great foundations. Yeah.
I appreciate it. I just, my interest is really, I want to keep the conversation moving. I want to give everybody an opportunity to talk. I think everybody has a different perspective, and really we just continue to grow and we share those perspectives. So to me, it's just, having an open conversation, having an open dialogue, and really showing up and being supportive to people. So again, thank you so much for your time tonight. I know you're busy and appreciate you making the time. And we'll talk soon. Have a wonderful evening.
Let's get a bench up in Avon. Okay.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that. I will propose the idea. I didn't even tell you, but I've been at a prep school in Avon this year. I'm consulting, and I think it's time for me to bring the concept up to them, and we'll talk.
I mean, I've spoken to one of my biggest ones was all 900 students at Fairfield Prep. So. That went really well, and I could put you in touch with the main counselor there, Robin Bellata. I would love to come up and sometimes you got to have those serious conversations.
Let's make it happen. Yeah. Appreciate the offer, Jim. We'll talk. Thanks again. Right. Thanks for coming. Take care. Bye-bye.
That's all for this episode of Normalize It Forward. May this conversation serve as a reminder that you are never alone in facing your mental health struggles. There are always people who can help. To dive even deeper into our journey of normalizing one of the biggest issues young people face, Check out more episodes of the show at youareheard.com. It's UAREHEARD.com. Continue gaining access to the right tools, the best resources, and the most insightful advice to achieve positivity, mindfulness, and genuine happiness.